Okay, for the last video for week 3, our content, I'm going to talk to you about how to process. I've already showed you how to load film. I have one roll of film in this canister. I want to talk about what you do just to start the process. You want to make sure that you're prepared, okay? Now the first thing I want to make sure that you do before you get in here is make sure that you've fully read the instructions. Now this is actually in the week 4 content. I'm reviewing this in week 3 to get it started, to demonstrate, but sometime in the next few weeks you're going to actually have the opportunity to process. Make sure you have a copy of these instructions with you when you come in here to the darkroom. Some things that I want you to do before you start processing each time you start to process. So you want to make sure that not only you have your film ready, but you want to understand that you have your chemistry ready. Now the chemistry should be set up on the table here for you. It should be in order. Make sure you try to keep things in order. When you take the stop bath out and you use the stop bath, put the stop bath back where you found it so that the next person can expect to find the stop bath. But always start by confirming that you have all the chemistry that you need and it's ordered properly. So I have my developer is the first thing. I have my stop bath. I have my fixer. I have my Hypo clear. And I have my Photo-Flo. All right. So I've confirmed that not only the chemistry is here, I have enough of the chemistry, but that the chemistry is in the order so that it's going to be easy for me to go through the process when I get there. You do want to check and make sure you have additional chemistry so that if you go through the process, if you're about to go through the process, you find that, say, the stop bath is not usable, it's exhausted. We'll talk about what that means here in a moment. That you actually have more. I know that I actually have more stop bath and more fixer and more Hypo clear and more Photo-Flo because it's down below. I actually mixed it earlier today, so I know I have fresh chemistry. But you always want to make sure that you have everything you need before you get started, because if you start the process and then get part way through the process and realize that you don't have one of the chemicals, you may damage your film. You may ruin your homework, okay? The next thing you need to do is I want you to review the disposal guidelines. Now the disposal guidelines are on this handout that we have in the content. So it goes through and it details what we do with the developer, the stop bath, the fixer, so on and so forth. And I'm going to do each of those each time I go through, but I'll talk about it now. Just disposal, okay? Developer we use once. There's no test to determine whether or not it's still useful or if it's exhausted, because it's a one-time deal. You use the developer once and then it goes down the drain. Stop bath is what we call indicator stop bath. It's called indicator stop bath because it's yellow when you start, and then when it's exhausted it turns purple. That's why it's indicator stop bath. When it turns purple, the stop bath goes down the drain. Fixer is the first chemical where we actually have to do something. What we have to do is up here on the top here, and I didn't check before I started, so now I don't know where it is. I'll have to find some Hypo check. Hold on a second, maybe I have some below. See, and this is why you make sure that you're ready before you get started, because I didn't have everything I needed. Clearly, somehow the Hypo check has been moved, and I don't have Hypo check. So I'm going to stop and come back and show you the Hypo check. Okay, so Hypo check, I went and got some Hypo check. If you're ever missing chemistry, come talk to me. I keep chemistry underneath this sink. I keep chemistry for the paper processing in cabinets underneath in the paper area, and then I also have chemistry, some chemistry in the cabinets on the that would be the southwest corner of the paper processing room. So here's our Hypo check, okay? I'm going to check the fixer with Hypo check. Now, if the fixer is good, it will actually come out clear when I put the Hypo check in. If the fixer is exhausted, it will actually, the hypo check will turn the fixer milky. Okay, you'll get a little, it'll look like you've dropped some cream into the fixer. When fixer is exhausted, fixer does not go down the drain. Fixer goes into the recovery bucket. There's a white bucket. I'm actually using it as a tripod right now. But there's a white bucket that will always be on the right-hand corner of the film processing area. So you'll actually put exhausted fixer into the white bucket. Hypo clear, we also check with the hypo check, and it tells us the same way. If it's clear, it's still good. If it's milky, we need to put it into the recycling bucket, the recovery bucket, on the edge of the table there. And then Photo-Flo, this one's the most fun to talk about. The Photo-Flo, when it is still good and can be used, it smells sweet and pleasant. When it is exhausted, it smells like rotten eggs. So that's how you know that that's exhausted. And the disposal for the Photo-Flo is it just goes down the drain. Now it's important that you understand each of these, okay? If you dispose of something improperly, if you try to reuse something that shouldn't be reused, you're going to damage your homework, you're going to damage somebody else's homework. The other thing that I want to talk about is how we work with the chemistry. I'm only going to ask you to dilute the developer, and that's both here on the paper side and in the next room, here on the film side and in the next room at the paper side. The reason why you have to dilute the developer is because if I mix this to strength, it actually exhausts faster. It will actually, its usefulness is not as long. So we use, this is still in concentrate, okay? Everything else is at strength. You do not have to dilute anything but developer, and that's both sides, both film and paper. So don't dilute the stop bath. Do not dilute the fixer. Do not dilute the hypo clear. Do not dilute the Photo-Flo. This will damage the chemistry. Don't mix the chemistry. Stop bath, like we said, is reusable. When we are done with the stop bath, be careful that you put it back into the stop bath bucket, or jug, excuse me. If you accidentally mix the chemistry, let's say, hypothetically, you accidentally mix the stop bath in, or you put it back into the fixer jug, don't be embarrassed, don't be upset, come to see me, okay? It's not that big of a deal. I'll just have to mix more. It's a big deal if you make the mistake, you're embarrassed or frightened that I'm going to be upset with you. I'm not going to be upset with you. It happens. If you leave it and don't tell anybody, the next person who comes in to use the chemistry, if they're not careful, they're going to damage their homework. So not only are you damaging the chemistry, you're potentially damaging someone's homework. Not only is this costly from a standpoint of the cost of the film, but it's also costly from the standpoint of the person's time. So please communicate with me. I'm not going to be upset with you if you accidentally make a mistake. You have to let me know. Then the last thing I want to make sure you do is that you should review the instructions so you know exactly what you're doing before you start. You don't want to start the developer and then you're trying to pay attention to the timer while you're developing, but at the same time, you're also reading the instructions as to what happens next. You're going to make a mistake. Make sure that until you are very comfortable with this process, that you're reviewing the instructions and you have an idea. You answer every question to yourself. Okay, how do I know if this chemical is good? I check it with the hypo check. How am I going to dispose of it if it's bad? Well, it's going to go into the recovery bucket. Pay attention to those types of things. Make sure you know those answers. Okay, so preparing the chemistry. Probably the one that is going to give you guys the most fits is the developer, because the developer gives you the most that you have to remember. There's two things that you have to remember when you're doing the developer. One, you have to dilute the developer. For film, you're going to dilute it 1 to 4. Okay, so that means you're going to have to do a little bit of math. Now I have it actually written out, so it's a bit of a cheat here. Like on this canister, it actually says for one roll, I'm going to do 12 ounces of H2O and 3 ounces of developer. So 1 ounce of developer for every 4 ounces of water. If I'm doing 2 rolls, I'm going to do 20 ounces of H2O, 5 ounces of developer, okay? So again, same ratio, I'm just using more developer. If you're not sure how much to use, that's actually one of the things I have on this cheat sheet. So it's telling you which type of plastic tank, what kind of rim it has, and then it tells you how much of the chemistry to use. I don't think many of you are going to use the metal tanks, but that information is there as well. The other thing that you need to understand when you're doing the developer is temperature. Now, the water in here should be pretty consistent. We have a temperature control system here. I'm not going to use the hot tap, I'm not going to use the cold tap, I'm going to use the tempered and filtered water tap. So one of the first things I need to do is turn the tap on and start to run some water, and I'm going to get one of our thermometers. There's thermometers up across the top here. I'm going to put the thermometer in, and I'm just going to watch the temperature. Now the reason why that is important is because the temperature of the developer will actually increase or decrease our developing time. The rest of the chemistry, you don't have to worry about the temperature. It's just room temperature. But we're diluting the developer with water, so we have to pay attention to that. And it actually says here at the top, it says, for the TMax 400 that you're using, if the water is 75 degrees, you're going to go 6 minutes. If the water is 68 degrees, you're going to go 7 minutes. And if you're somewhere in between, you might want to try 6.5 minutes. Okay, so I'm looking at the temperature here, and it looks like I'm running about 71 degrees. So I might actually want to do 6.5 minutes for this, okay? And now if you want to get really detailed, there's a number of sheets up here that you can check, and one of them actually has the TMax, and it's talking about 70 degrees, 6.5 minutes, 72 degrees, 6.5 minutes. So I would actually do 6.5 minutes at 71 degrees. It's actually bumping up to 72, so I'll probably actually go 6.5 minutes, all right? That's the only time that you have to worry about this, all right? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mix my chemistry now. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn this off. Typically, once I have the water running, once I have the right temperature, I'll turn it off. I run water in between to mix, to make sure that I can have water to clean with. I'm doing 1 roll, so I need 12 ounces of water. I'm pouring enough of the water out. I don't want to waste too much water. Okay. And I'm just about at 12 ounces here. Okay, I don't know how well you guys can see that. I'll try to come up a little closer here, all right? And now I'm gonna put in the 3 ounces of developer. So I'm gonna basically put developer up to 15 ounces now. So I like to put my finger right on where 15 is. Okay, and now I have the correct amount of developer and water. I like to take one of these little stirring sticks and just mix that up. Chances are you were going to mix it up when you're agitating it during the processing, but I think it's a good idea just to make sure that it's mixed up nicely. Make sure you're always rinsing everything that you use, and this is probably the only time I'm going to use this, so I'll go ahead and rinse it and then put it back up on the shelf. So the next thing I need to do is I need to set my timer up, okay? So I'm going to set my timer to off. There's a little switch up here that says off. And I'm going to set, I know I'm going to go 6.5 minutes. So this is my minute hand that has the little arm on it. And then this is my second hand. So I'm going to go to 6.5. Okay? That's how, it's easy for me to keep track of how long I need to process the film for. Now that I have my chemistry mixed, my film loaded, I'm ready to process. So the first thing I'm going to do here, open up the top, I'm going to pour the chemistry in. I'm going to try to be careful with it, I don't want to splash it all over the place. I'm going to put the top back on. I'm going to press the on button on the timer so that it starts to go, and then I'm going to agitate for the first 30 seconds. This is all we do to agitate. See this motion right here? Use two hands if you're worried about it. You're going to get chemistry on you. It's going to leak a little bit, just as long as it's not leaking like a sieve. All right? This is making sure that the film is getting completely covered, that the chemistry is completely mixed. And then at the end of the 30 seconds, I'm going to tap. And now, every 30 seconds, I'm going to agitate for 5 seconds and tap to get rid of the air bubbles. Tapping to get rid of the air bubbles is important. If you let the chemistry and air bubbles sit on your film and you don't agitate, you don't tap, that part of your film is not going to process properly. Okay? It's been 30 seconds. I'm going to agitate for 5 seconds. And tap. Okay, now this is a good opportunity for me to get ready for the next step. I'm going to rinse out the cylinder. The developer is used once and then exposed, so I'm not going to put the developer back. Rinse the cylinder out. I don't want to mix the chemistry. Always want to be careful. It's time to agitate again. Tap, tap, tap. And now I'm going to get the stop bath out, and I need, I had 12 ounces of water, 3 ounces of developer for 1 roll of film in the tank I'm using. So now I know I need 15 of everything else. Not diluting it, just at strength. Okay. Set that down. Put this back. Time to agitate again. Tap, tap, tap. Hopefully, if I'm doing this right, we're going to see some good stuff. I could put I can put this to the top back on here just so I don't spill, but you know, I'll sometimes leave it open. That's not necessarily a good idea. Now let's talk about how we know the stop bath is good. I'm going to agitate. And tap, tap, tap. I know that the stop bath is good because of the color. This is good stop bath. I got a leak in my tank here. Hopefully that's not taking me down below the amount of stuff I need. But if it was purple, it would be bad. I'm going to switch cylinders here because clearly I have a leak. But I'm going to agitate really quick first. I might get some interesting film here because if my developer leaked, I'm not covering my film. Thankfully, this for me is for demo purposes, not for a grade. So hopefully this won't happen to you. It does happen, and I've talked to some of the students about this already. Understand that at some point in time during this semester, you're going to lose a roll of film. It's going to happen, all right? If I have a student who doesn't turn a homework assignment in because they're not doing their work in a timely fashion like they should be, I'm going to give them... Okay, so I ended up getting on the phone there, and that messed up my video. Sorry about that. I've actually processed for the full amount of time. I'm going to go ahead and dump the chemistry here. And then, according to our instructions, because we've been checking, it's just stop bath next. I have the stop bath ready to go. Just going to put it straight in because I want to stop the developing process. Set this for 30 seconds. Agitate for 15 seconds, and then let it rest for 15 seconds. And again, tapping for bubbles. And then when you're done with the stop bath, you're going to do a water wash and prepare for fixer. So this isn't going exactly as I planned, and that's probably my fault. I'm trying to, multitask. But I did the water wash here. So I've been through the stop bath, went through the water wash. Now I need to get it into the fixer, all right? So here's the stop bath. You can see it's still yellow, so it's still good. So I'm gonna grab a funnel. I wanna ensure that my funnel is clean. So I'm gonna rinse it out. And then I'm going to put the fixer back, or excuse me, the stop bath back into the stop bath jug. I'm then going to rinse again, rinse the cylinder, rinse the funnel, put the cap back on, get my fixer ready. Again, I started with 15 fluid ounces. I'm going to stick with 15 fluid ounces because I have the one roll of film. If I had 2 rolls of film in here, the amount of chemistry I would be using would be different. We always determine that at the beginning of the process. I've put the fixer in. I'm going to grab the Hypo check, open the Hypo check up, drop a couple of drops in. To test it, it's clear, so the fixer's good. I'm good to go. I'm going to go ahead and actually, before I do that, I want to make sure I'm going to do this the way I expect you guys to do this. You're going to check here, and the fixer is going to be 5 to 10 minutes. I always err on the side of longer. So turn my timer to 10 minutes, put the fixer in. Top on and start, and I'm going to agitate. Now, for simplicity, I'm just going to tell you that you're going to find all kinds of different instructions in the textbook, in the instructions I give you, if you read something online. There's all kinds of different things that people are going to say as far as the amount of time that you fix your images. That you agitate your fixer. I'm going to say just agitate it the same way you do the developer, just to make things simple. So I'm agitating for the first 30 seconds, tap, tap, tap. I'm going to agitate every 30 seconds for 5 seconds. Okay, so every 30 seconds I'm going to agitate for 5 seconds, tap, tap, tap. I'm not going to show you that part. I'll come back and when I'm at the end of the 10 minutes, I'll tell you what's next. Okay, so I'm done with my fixer. So I'm going to put the fixer back in to the cylinder. And I always test the fixer before and after I use the fixer. I test it before to make sure it's still good. Now I'm testing it after to make sure it's good to put back in. 2 drops, Hypo check. It's clear, so I'm going to put it back in to the fixer jug. Now the next step is Hypo clear. Now Hypo clear is it's going to help us clean the film. The Hypo clear actually makes the processing time much faster. If we don't actually have to use Hypo clear, but if we don't use the Hypo clear, we would actually have to wash the film for 30 minutes. So between the fixer and the Hypo clear, we're going to do a 30-second water wash. So, and I usually will just stick it underneath and let 30 seconds run off. Some of these, things are time sensitive. Some of them are less time sensitive. Developer is very time sensitive. Okay, if you overdo or underdevelop your film, your images aren't going to come out. Stop bath, not really that time sensitive. I mean, you would really have to leave a stop bath on for a good deal of time, too long, in order for it to damage your film. So, but 30 seconds, no big deal. Fixer is important. You don't want to underfix, but it's really difficult to overfix. You know, it's not. It would have to be, again, a pretty silly extended amount of time in order to over-fix your chemistry. So I've washed the film, done a 30-second wash. I also want to wash my cylinder and my funnel again, because I don't want to mix the chemistry. And now I'm going to put the Hypo Clear in, and the Hypo Clear is 2 minutes, so not very long at all. I got a little extra there, but I'm not going to worry about it too much. I am going to check it. It's clear. I'm good to go. You don't need to do the first 30 seconds on that one. Really just agitate it every 30 seconds just to make sure that everything's getting all the film's being touched by the chemistry, and then you tap to ensure there's no air bubbles. So you're going to do this for 2 minutes, and then you're going to go into a water wash. The water wash, because we're using a Hypo Clear, doesn't have to be as long. You don't need a 30-minute water wash. You only need 10 to 15 minutes. And at this point, we've fixed the image. This film is actually safe to see light now. The image is fixed because of the fixer. So once I put the, I'm going to test the Hypo Clear to make sure it's still good, put it back into the jug. I'll actually just put this under a water wash. I don't need to show you that, but I'll just actually just open the whole thing up, put it underneath, and wash it for 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, so I'm done with the Hypo Clear. I put the Hypo Clear back in. The film is just in a water wash. You can see here now. I've looked at the film and it looks like that crack in the cylinder didn't harm my film, thank goodness. I'm going to check the Hypo Clear with the Hypo Check. It's clear, so I can continue to reuse this Hypo Check. After I do the 10 to 15 minute water wash, I will come back and show you guys what to do with Photo-Flo. Now, while I'm doing the water wash, I might want to make sure I clean things up, put things back where they need to go. Well, I want you to, just like we've talked about before, we're going to leave this place cleaner than when we found it. Okay, I'm nearing the end of my water wash, so I'm going to be ready for my Photo-Flo. The timer just went off. I'm going to go ahead and turn the water off, dump the water. And for this one, I'm not going to measure. I'm just going to take the Photo-Flo and I'm going to put it straight into my canister. Let me back up here a little bit so you can see. Now, remember the Photo-Flo, we can tell the Photo-Flo is still good if it smells kind of sweet and pleasant. So it's just that simple. Okay, if it smells like rotten eggs, it goes down the drain. I'm just going to pour that over until I can see the Photo-Flo up at the top, and then I'm going to agitate it for 1 minute or until it gets all sudsy. It always feels kind of sudsy, so I always do it for a minute. Now this is how you agitate it. You see how I'm just spinning it with my finger, and then I'll actually kind of pick it up and plunge it like so, kind of spin it. I'm just going to do that for 1 minute. It doesn't take long at all. I'm just going to go ahead and keep you with me here for this last part of it, because the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how you take the film off of the reel and then prepare it for going into the dryer. The dryer is right next to the sink. Some things about the dryer. Our dryer is very old, and some of the features don't work. So like the timer doesn't work. So you just basically turn it on and turn it off. The timer doesn't help you at all. And you're going to dry your film for let's see, I have 20 minutes on here. Sometimes you get a little faster. I always try to err on the longer side. That's why some of these will actually say, you know, like the water wash, I say 10 to 15 minutes. Some instructions will actually say after you use Hypo Clear, you only need 5 minutes. I like to make sure that you guys, I'd rather you overfix, I'd rather you overwatch, I'd rather you overdry. Okay, so it's done now. I can take the film off. I'm just going to go ahead and put the canister on, get the last roll here, and then just like when I was showing you how to load film, I'm going to twist this till I get tension, and then twist a little bit more. I'm going to do the other way. There we go, and it pops. Okay, one part comes off, and now I can pull the film out and see the film. Okay, now be careful, you don't want your film to actually touch the sink, but this is when you don't want to get a lot of fingerprints on your film. What you're going to do here is you're actually going to take your 2 fingers and you're just going to squeeze this Photo-Flo off. For those of you that have longer arms, you're going to do this over the sink. If you have shorter arms, you may have to get some on the floor. Just make sure you clean it up. So I'm just going to squeeze and then keep squeezing until I get to the end. And I'm going to look at my film here, and I have some images. These are actually images out of my pinhole camera, so I can see my images for the first time, which is pretty exciting. Lots of fun. I can't see too much yet. It looks, what I'm excited about is I actually had a 1-hour exposure. I did some astronomy photography with a pinhole camera. That's what this is. So I'm excited to see what that looks like. But I'm going to go ahead and put this into the dryer for 20 minutes, and then I'll show you guys how to take the film from the dryer and then cut it up and put it into a film file. I wanted to talk to just one last thing before I pull the film out of the dryer. Putting the chemistry back, of course, you want to make sure that still smells nice and sweet. My funnel was actually still dirty from the Hypo Clear, so I'm going to clean that out. And I actually am not entirely sure. I might actually rinse it out once before, but it's better to over clean than under clean. It's not rotten egg smelling, so it goes back in. And then please, please, please clean everything up. Don't do what I just did there. And while you're making a video, not pay attention to the fact that you're getting chemistry all over. So try to keep things as clean as possible. You know, put the caps back on bottles, and then rinse the outsides of the bottles off if you do like I just did. Got some of the chemistry on the outside of the bottle. Rinse the reels, what do I usually call these darn things? The pegs in the middle, all the parts to the canister, and then put things back where they belong, up on the top, so that everything's nice and clean when you're done. All right. Okay, so now on to the last phase. I have my film, and it is dry. This is the film that I processed with you guys, and as you can see, it actually came out just fine. I was a little bit worried because I had actually had a problem with that cracked cylinder. So make sure, I mean, this is actually a good thing that I've had some problems, because now you guys can see that you need to take it, you know, easy, really pay attention. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to basically prepare this film to put into these print files. And I keep the print files actually just on the other side here of the light table in the darkroom. I supply those for you guys. If you run out, let me know. Now, this is some film that I took on a pinhole camera, so it's hard to see the differentiation in the exposures. So I have some other film that I shot. This is just film that I shot on a, sorry, I don't have a tripod for this right now. But you can see here, it's really easy to see the differentiation between each frame. So the print files that I have, I call them print files, they're negative files actually. Print files, the company. But you can actually get 5 frames onto one of these little rows here. And it's just a little piece of, it's just plastic. If you look here, you can see it. You just slide it in here. So it's pretty simple. You just, cut it up, slide it in, and then that way you're prepared for the next step in the darkroom. Now, one of the things you want to be careful of is that when we were loading the film, we weren't too worried about, fingerprints and things on it. But now that I have the film processed, I want to be careful, because now if I get gunk and things from my hands on the film, that's actually something that may come up when we make prints. And I'll show you later how to clean negatives when we get into printing. But you want to try to keep your negatives as clean as possible. All right, so that's what I have for you. Hopefully this answers most of your questions. If you have additional questions, please do let me know. And enjoy this week. I'll be announcing other lab periods soon.